Hey guys, Mr. Gibson here. We're going to talk about something with international trade called the balance of payments. Okay. So, first, just a little review here. This is showing the savings investment identity. Um, so, you've got your formula for GDP or for the output of the unit economy. Uh, you have, in this case, they're focusing on a closed economy. So, we're not going to consider net exports. If you solve for I and get that, what you find is that you have savings equals of investment in an open economy. And you also have this whole crazy formula for what would be called national savings. And that is whatever people are saving personally. So that's Y minus T minus your taxes minus your consumer spending. What's left over is your personal savings plus what the government is saving. Taxes minus government spending. So perceivably, if taxes are greater than government spending, the government would add to national savings. If government spending is greater than taxes, then you're taking away from national savings, kind of that crowding out effect that we've talked about before. Okay. Now, that's for a closed economy. For an open economy, meaning that there's international trade, it's not as simple as that. Okay. So we come to this idea that's called balance of payments. Okay. And you have two types of things. You have two types of payments. You have a current account versus a financial account. And current account must equal financial account. Okay. In theory, they must equal each other. It's kind of a portfolio or a balance sheet kind of thing here. Okay. So the idea is this: current account is more physical cash, physical goods or services that is moving in or out of a country. Okay. Exports minus imports. Uh, it says investment incomes. Okay. Incomes that you're, so say a foreign company invests in the United States, and then there's some income that they get from that. It'll come out of their transfer payments. You can think of this as foreigners who come to the United States and uh, transfer money back to their homeland. That happens a lot. So current account is just these kind of physical cash payment, cash kind of thing, physical goods and services being or incomes. You kind of think of the circular flow model, anything that's kind of a that comes out of the out of markets. Okay, whereas you have financial account, and this is more of your, well, as it says, financial instruments, right? It says bond savings, equities, okay, direct investment. So people that take their savings and put it into a country, okay. So these have to equal each other. These have to equal each other, and that makes sense. So think about it. A lot of times, um, we can think of it in terms of the United States. A lot of times people say, well, United States has a lot of their debt is held by the Chinese. And what that means is, okay, the United States has a current account that's negative. We import a lot of goods, from China or wherever. And so we run a deficit, but where do we get that cash from? Well, we have to borrow that cash. And who do we borrow the cash from? Well, from places like China. Okay. So we have a positive financial account. So because we have a lot of cash, a lot of investment and savings moving into another word for these savings from other countries. The other word for cash is we could call that capital. Okay. Well, not capital as in something that physical that makes something else, but capital as in cash that will be used in investment. Okay, so capital will come into this country, and then we use that to fund ourselves um, to have imports. Okay, so our financial account is positive, our current account is negative. Somewhere like China, their financial account is probably negative. There's a outflow versus the current account is uh, probably positive because they have a lot of exports. Okay, so a lot of cash coming into that country, in the form of from physical goods. That cash comes out of the country in the form of savings to invest in the rest of the world or whatever. Okay, so so basically, the point of this too is that the internationally in an open economy, it's more it's more complicated than the closed economy because this savings and investment identity works because, well, the savings in the country has to go somewhere within the country, whereas this balance of payments comes into play because at some point investors or savers can choose to put their country or put their money elsewhere, their capital elsewhere in other countries. Okay, so this has an effect on not only the capital and the savings within a country, but it has an effect the uh, on the exchange rate as well. So let's look at this. Here's an example here. Okay, so let's in this example here, you can see if you look at the left um, graph, this is the loanable funds market for the United States. As you guys can see, the rate in the United States is a 6% rate. Okay. This is versus on the right side, you have the United Kingdom's loanable funds market. And the interest rate there, the return is only 2%. So what's going to happen is that investors or savers in the United Kingdom are going to want to put their money into the United States because they're going to get a higher rate of return. Okay. Um, so what's eventually going to happen is it's going to balance itself out. So if you see this 4% as capital inflows into the United States, the supply of loanable funds will go up, which will cause the interest rate to fall. Whereas in the United Kingdom, the supply of loanable funds will will shift to the left, and they'll go back to 4%. Okay. So this is the most rudimentary example of this. But what we would say is that capital is outflowing. There's a capital outflow from the United Kingdom and a capital inflow into the United States. Okay, so let's examine this in a little more detail. Okay, all right. So let's look at a capital inflow. We'll keep the U.S. here. That's your 6%. Okay. All right. So as capital inflows, the supply of capital or the supply of loanable funds, same thing, will go down to this 4%, and that's going to be due to capital inflow. All right. So again, from the last page, because the rate of return, the interest rate in the United States is higher than in the UK, uh, folks from the UK come to the United States. They bring their savings into the United States. That'll increase the supply of loanable funds, and thus, as the supply increases, the uh, the rate will go down. Okay, but this is due to capital inflow. So let's take it one step further. We can be a little more sophisticated with this. Okay, as you can tell, we'll talk about the capital inflow in a second. I know that looks weird up there, but bear with me. So let's look at the market, the foreign exchange market for dollars. Okay, so we got this quantity here. We're going to put this in pounds per dollar. demand, supply. Okay. Just going to put a little E there for the exchange rate. Okay. So as foreign investors come to the United States with this capital inflow, they can't use pounds in the United States. They're going to have to use dollars. Okay. So, what they're going to do is they're going to exchange their pounds for dollars. So, this will increase the demand for loanable or for dollars for for the country's currency, the dollar, and the exchange rate will increase. Okay, so the dollar will appreciate since this is floating. Appreciates. And from our earlier videos, as the dollar appreciates, it's going to make our goods and services more expensive. So exports will decrease and net exports will decrease, causing output to go down. Okay. So as the dollar appreciates, it makes our goods and services appear more expensive. Exports will go down, net exports will go down, and eventually the um, the output will go down. Now, it's not all a bad story. If we have capital coming into the economy, that also means that we're investing more, we're building more capital. So our long run aggregate supply could actually increase as well. So this might be just a short run effect because of this, but um, it is worth noting, okay, because of this capital inflow. Now, go ahead and erase this for you guys. Let's talk about capital inflow real quick. I mean, capital outflow real quick. So, likewise, pardon me. Okay. So, in a similar fashion, but in the opposite way, we have the UK. Yeah, I can't see that. Sorry. We have a place like the UK. This again will be their loanable funds market. Okay. And oh, yeah, it said it was 2%. So let me just write that down. So they're 2%. The rest of the world, the United States in particular, had a um, higher interest rate, so a greater rate of return. Our UK investors, our UK savers with their savings decide to take their cash, take their capital, and go elsewhere, namely the United States. That means that the supply of loanable funds will decrease, causing the interest rate to rise. And we'll say this is due to a capital outflow. I'm just going to put a K for capital, okay? Capital outflow. All right. Let's see how it affects their currency. As you can imagine, it probably works in the opposite direction. So let's look. So we've got quantity of pounds, dollars per pound, demand, supply. This is our market for pounds, making that pound symbol. Okay. And so what happens here is folks in the United Kingdom have to take their pounds and exchange them for dollars. So that means there's going to be pounds that go into this market. So the supply for pounds increases because they're taking their pounds and exchanging it for dollars. And the exchange rate goes down. Okay. So the pound has depreciated, depreciates, okay, goes down. And that makes goods and services in the United Kingdom look like they are less expensive to the rest of the world. So exports go up, net exports go up, and output increases. Okay. So this also illustrates some of this current account versus financial account in a way also. So if you see here, we have a capital outflow. So that means financial account is negative, right? Because cash has flow, capital, cash, savings, bonds, all that stuff is going to other countries, and it's causing the pound to depreciate. But guess what happens? Exports go up, net exports goes up. That's a current account thing. So in this case, the current account has increased, and up here you can see where the financial account has decreased. Okay, so they're staying balanced. This balance of payments. Okay. Uh, Thanks for your attention.